Today, I want to talk about minding your business. Your business is referring to your assignment or your goal or your particular journey in life. When we start to compare ourselves with others, it creates confusion in the goals that we're trying to achieve. So what is your current business? What is it that you should be minding? Are you managing you or are you monitoring others? I used to want so much, not just for myself, but for those around me as well. That started to cloud my judgment. It caused me to question my friends. Every financial decision you make may make sense to you, but may not make sense to others. We need to shift from focusing on what others are doing or what others have and just simply put the focus on us. We were all playing different games. And once I started to mind my own business and play my own game, I started to gain a better sense of not just success, but appreciation for the differences that we all have. All right, welcome to the new episode of the Myles Podcast. This is Myles Jr. As always, the goal of this podcast is to entertain, educate, and elevate you miles high above your fears, your doubts, and any limitations that you might think exist, always knowing that those limitations only exist in your mind. All right. For starters, I want to plug our Munroe Institute of Leadership. We have just introduced a number of new products, new courses. We have some micro learning courses and some mini courses that are available now. These courses were made available because I wanted to offer more than just a 9-week intense studying course. I wanted to offer something that was a lot more self-driven. It was self-paced, self-guided, but still, added value to your life if you were able to experience and take the course. So we have these mini courses and micro-learning courses available to you, especially going into, coming down to the end of 2025, going into 2026. I think this is a great time for you to start to not only develop your personal skills, but to develop your professional skills as well, your leadership skills. And I think that these courses that we are offering can help you to do just that. So log on to our website, themil, themil.org, themil.org. You can get a lot more information on these new courses that we have to offer. We have our full-length courses, now our 9-week courses that are going to be run at the top of next year. Those will be available in January of next year, so you can register for those now if you want. But if you want to do something a little more self-paced, a little more self-guided, and still receive value to your life, I highly recommend our mini courses and our micro-learning courses. All right. So I hope that you guys are able to take those, experience those, and add value to the things that you're doing or the things that you want to do in your life. All right. All right. So today I want to talk about the topic of minding your business. The idea for this, the topic for this pod actually came out of a conversation I was having with a friend of mine. And we were just talking about our perspectives on the way that we invest, right? And he was giving me, he was giving me some flack, I would say, on the things that I wanted to do and that I was interested in doing, because they were a bit different from his. And it was in fun, right? It wasn't like he was really being serious about what he was saying, but the conversation that we were having kind of sparked this idea. And at the same time, I'm reading and listening to a number of I'm reading a number of books and listening to a number of like podcasts and stuff like that kind of have been speaking in the same vein. And it just sparked this idea for me of the importance of minding your own business. I know for me, this has been something that even I had to become a lot more conscious of, right? Because a lot of the times when we either see or talk to we either see someone or talk to someone that's doing something, right? It could be anything. It could be in their finances. It could be in their fitness journey. It could be in their diet, and they're doing things that we don't agree with, right? Or we don't align with, or we may not even understand. And to us, it looks like it does not make sense, or it's not going to be fruitful for them. But to them, it's probably benefiting them because they have a particular goal in mind that they are working towards, and what they're doing can maybe help them get closer to that goal instead of what we're doing. So when I say minding your business, I'm not talking about being in isolation, right? I'm not being around persons. I'm more so talking about just aligning yourself properly. Your business, when I say minding your business is referring to your assignment or your goal or your particular journey in life, right? We're supposed to have blinders on, or we should have blinders on when we're focusing on what it is that we are trying to do. Knowing your why, more times than not, it really governs the how for you. It governs the way that you do things. And, a lot of the times, the things that we're doing as individuals won't align because we're all playing a different game. Different goals call for different game plans. So two people can be doing the same thing, but doing them for entirely two different reasons, or different reasons, right? And it just depends on what the goal is that you're trying to achieve, what your journey is that you're trying to, the end result that you're trying to get closer to. Some, as an example, you have persons that see money in different ways, and this is a big thing because everyone is adamant about saving, investing, monitoring how you spend. And the things that we've been taught along these different subject lines, and the way that we internalize them and personalize them for ourselves, it causes us to sometimes judge what we see others doing or what we don't see others doing, right? So someone who is trying to be an aggressive saver for early retirement treats their savings and treats their money different than someone that is spending freely because their focus is more on experiences, right? So are either of them wrong in their journey or in their goal setting? Absolutely not. It just depends on what the individual is really focused on. So it's not a wrong decision. It's just a different decision. And you have to really determine what the goal is, what your goal is, and focus on that. I think sometimes we tend to call someone who is spending freely undisciplined, right? Because they aren't disciplined in the way that we're disciplined, or that we see ourselves being disciplined. But discipline can also be a relative form of being, right? We can be disciplined in different areas of our lives because we have to have a certain amount or a certain level or a certain type of discipline in order to achieve the goals that we want to achieve. So let's give a few examples, right? So you have a sprinter, right? You have a Olympic sprinter, someone who runs the short distances, who, let's say 100 meters and 200 meters. They're training and working out every day for the perfection of their craft. And then you have someone who is a marathon runner. And you have two different individuals training in a similar sport, training, let's say, for the Olympics to achieve a gold medal. But the way they go about their training happens in separate and totally different ways. But if you're the sprinter and you're looking at the marathon runner and you're saying, man, you're trying to build up speed and endurance for the race that you are going to run, you should do it like this because this is the way that I do it. But in actuality, and in real time, the type of speed and endurance that a sprinter needs versus the type of speed and endurance that a marathon runner needs are entirely different. So the training is different in the same way, right? At the same time, like, someone who wants to lose weight, right? You have someone who just wants to drop the numbers on the scale, right? And they want to go from 300 pounds to 200 pounds, right? And then you have someone who weighs 300 pounds, but their bone structure and physique is entirely different than the other person who is 300 pounds, and they want to lose weight, but they also want to gain more muscle mass. So the type of diet that they each go on, the type of fitness regimen that they use or they have or that they implement is entirely different because the goals are different. So both want to lose weight. Both want to go from 300 pounds to 200 pounds. But because the end goal is different, the way that they go about achieving that goal is going to be entirely different. But if you're focusing just on the fact that, I want to lose weight, the person who just wants to lose 100 pounds versus the person who wants to lose 100 pounds but also gain muscle mass will be judged differently, right? And one may look at the other and say, man, you're doing it the wrong way because you're eating too much or you're not eating enough. And, like I said, it just depends on the end goal. So a lot of the times we tend to miss our mark because we're so focused on what the other person is doing and what they're doing wrong compared to what we're doing. I think for me, I used to want so much, not just for myself, but for those around me as well, that started to cloud my judgment when it came to my friends. I was really adamant and so gung-ho about me being able to go or get into business with my friends. And this is something that has always been a goal of mine. And when we got to a stage in our lives where I felt personally, and this was probably the most selfish I was in my life when it came to like my friends, right? But we all got to a stage in our lives where I feel we were capable of, comfortably getting into a good business together. We would have conversations and just try to decide on, man, what it is that we could do, or what would we be interested in. And we threw out a lot of different ideas. Nothing stuck, right? It was sort of, I wouldn't say nothing stuck, but it didn't. Nothing stuck to the point where the overall goal became the ultimate reality, right? And it caused me to question my friends, but not in a negative sense, right? It was just me taking a step back and was like, man, why can't we get this right? Like, why can't we all get on the same page and do this together, right? Because I know we're all capable. I know we have the intelligence, we have the means, the resources to do it. So why can't we, right? And even in my sense of like what I wanted to do as a professional, like I've never had an interest to hold a corporate job, right, or to work for someone. And at an early age, I've always had sort of this entrepreneurial spirit and just wanted to create and develop things for myself. Maybe not by myself, right, but in a more non-conventional way, as opposed to going or trying to climb the corporate ladder. And then I had friends who their sole interest was, climbing the corporate ladder and being successful on that side. And, we had so many differences, at least I had so many differences with them earlier on, that I just couldn't understand or fathom, man, like, what's the disconnect? Like, what is happening? And then at some point, I don't even know what it was that triggered this revelation, but at some point I just started to understand or gain a better understanding of where we all were, right? And everything didn't have to do with like our our familial status, right? Because I had friends who were married at the time. At this time, I wasn't married. I didn't have any kids. But I had a lot of friends that were married, that had kids. So for me, my thought process wasn't thinking along the lines of someone that is single that didn't have much responsibilities, right? At least didn't have a family and kids to worry about. So my approach to the things that I wanted to do was a lot more freer, right? And it took a lot more, it took less involvement from, just being me making the decisions, as for my friends who had like wives and kids that they had to consider. But that wasn't in my train of thought. And on top of that, we just all had different goals. We had different goals as far as where we wanted to be financially, the type of success that we were defining for ourselves. Everything was just different. So I started to realize that, man, none of us are wrong, right? We're just playing different games. And we have different game plans that we're putting into play. And once I started to mind my own business and really focus on, all right, like everyone's playing their game, let's just play our own games. We eventually started to come together and naturally develop a common goal in the businesses that we wanted to do or the investments that we wanted to make. And that's when a lot of us started to come together and do business together. So, for me, it took some time for me to get to that point. It was frustrating during the process, right? I just couldn't fathom, man, this makes so much sense. How are you guys not on board with this 100%? But I totally get it now. And, the fact that I am married now and I have a daughter now, like I totally understand. Like there are decisions that we have every day that, depending on where we are in life, it determines how we make these decisions. Not having a wife, not having kids to put at the forefront of our priority, we tend to make, I wouldn't say loose decisions, but we have less to consider when making decisions, right? But once you have those responsibilities in play, then your decision making is changed. And then, like I said, we have certain goals that we're trying to achieve. Some of us have corporate goals. Some of us want to climb the corporate ladder, and then some of us don't. Some of us want to, create and develop something outside of a corporation, and just build something that we would consider something that is a part of who we are or a piece of who we are. So it's just different goals, man, different approaches, and no one is wrong. I heard Morgan Housel quote something recently, and it just confirmed this perspective for me, right? He said, every financial decision you make may make sense to you, but may not make sense to others, right? And it's so true, because I can look at my wife, for example. She is someone who does not like to spend money. She is super frugal. I shouldn't say she isn't frugal. She isn't frugal at the least, but she does not like to spend, right? So she has these grandiose ideas of, man, we should do this as far as like business is concerned. We should do that. Or like for just our personal lives, like, man, let's do ABC. Let's do one, two, three of these things or whatnot. And it's like, okay, cool. And then when we sit down and we kind of map out what it would take to get these things done or to do these things, for her it's like, oh, never mind. Like, this does not make sense, or this is way too much, or, and so her thought process with spending is different than my thought process, right? Because for me, it's not more so the dollar amount. It's, what is this going to achieve 10 to 15 years from now? Like, is this going to be beneficial either to me or for those around me that makes this fruitful in me pursuing this goal? And it just depends on, like, one, what your how you grew up, right? The structure that you grew up under when it came to money, your money mindset or your finances, how comfortable you are with being able to save and spend and budget and do all of these things. Are you even educated along those lines, right? All of that plays a factor into the financial decisions that we make. And, like I say, the decisions that we make sense to us, right? Because we have a particular goal in mind or a game plan in mind. But someone seeing it from the outside, not being aware or privy to that game plan, may look at it and be like, man, that is a ridiculous decision, a retarded decision, right? I shouldn't say retarded. That is a ridiculous decision. And I think that's the approach I had when I was much younger, especially when dealing with my friends and I was having these conversations. I'm like, man, you guys are being ridiculous. Like, let's just do this. Like, this makes so much sense. But we were all playing different games. And once I started to mind my own business and play my own game, I started to gain a better sense of not just success, but appreciation for the differences that we all have. I think this mindset can be applied to a lot of areas in our lives, right? Because when we start to compare ourselves with others, it creates confusion in the goals that we're trying to achieve, right? And the conviction that we should be instead experiencing would clarify the focus that we have, right? So, we should never compare what it is that we're trying to do to what someone else is doing. And I think the best analogy I can draw up is the fitness lifestyle that, at least let me speak from a personal perspective, the fitness lifestyle that I am on. I rather play the long game, right? Because a lot of the times when we set goals, we want to achieve these goals as quickly as possible. And a lot of the times, like being able to achieving a goal quickly doesn't help us in sustaining what that goal has brought to us, right? So being able to get on a diet and a fitness routine that worked for me, say, in the first 3 to 4 months that I started this journey, and I got to the goal that I wanted to achieve. But because it wasn't gradual, or because it was something that was pretty instant, and I just kind of did it instantaneously, then once that goal was achieved, like, we celebrated, felt good about it, but it wasn't sustainable. It didn't last because it wasn't a part of the structured process that I needed, right? So when we look at, especially with social media, you see so much fitness influencers, and you're starting to, peep behind the curtains now. And a lot of the times, a lot of these folks are having surgeries. They take performance enhancing drugs. They use they use fake weights, like when they're doing a lot of these exercises. So what you see, or what they're presenting, or how they're performing on these social platforms may look a certain way, right? And we're, as the world, we're looking at this and saying, man, I see this person, I see what they're doing, I want to achieve that. And they're telling you how to achieve it, but they're leaving out a big portion of it, right? They're leaving out the fact that, man, I'm taking performance enhancers. I'm having surgeries to remove the body fat, or to add the sculpted abs, the midsections, or like a plethora of different things. So our focus should be on us and the journey itself, and really developing a plan that may not get us there quickly, but it will allow us to sustain this goal that we want to achieve over a longer period of time, because it's now being developed into a lifestyle. And I came to this realization when I was much younger. When I first started out on my fitness journey and just wanted to be healthy and look a lot more healthier, I went through, the whole processes of trying these different diets and doing these different workouts and different things that was helping me to achieve my goals, but I wasn't able to sustain them over a long period of time, because they were just short spurts of, I call it energy, right? And when you have these short spurts of energy, at some point you're going to run out, you're going to get tired. But developing that stamina over time allows you to be able to continue to run that race for a longer period of time because you're building up that endurance. That's the same for life. That's the same for finances. That's the same for family. Like nothing worth having is achieved instantaneously. Like everything worth having is achieved over time, right? So anything that is worth us being able to sustain, or even the process to sustain it, it happens gradually over a period of time, right? So there is really no get-rich-quick scheme that we can do. You know, the best way to build finances, the best way to build our physical bodies, the best way to do anything good in life is to apply the long process, right? To dedicate ourselves to achieving it over the long haul, so that we can build up that endurance and continue to be successful. So I want to ask you two things, right? What is your current business that you are minding, right? I think, again, what we consider our goals, what we consider our purpose in life, what we consider our journey in life, it determines how we do things, right? It determines the way that we perform, the way that we present ourselves, right? So what is your current business? What is it that you should be minding, right? Are you managing you, or are you monitoring others? And I think that's where the shift has to happen. We need to shift from focusing on what others are doing or what others have, and just simply put the focus on us. What we're doing may not make sense to anyone else. What we are doing may not benefit anyone else, right? Because we have a particular goal in mind. But in that same way, that principle applies to us. What others are doing, how others are doing it, may not work for us because our goals are different. Even if we say we want to be healthy, right, in our physicality, or we want to be wealthy in our finances, or we want to have a great family, or have healthy kids, and all of these things that we have set goals for, we can say that these are what we want to achieve from a macro level. But when you really look at it with a microscope, the way that we all are going to get to these things are going to be different, because the end goal is entirely different. The resources that we have are entirely different. Our mindsets are different, right? So what may look like it's working for someone may not work for us, because we just don't have the capabilities to apply that into what we're doing, and vice versa. What we're doing may not work for someone else, or may not even make sense to someone else, because we're all different beings, right? We do things and go about doing things differently. So the process should be not monitoring what others are doing, but minding what it is that we are doing. And I think if we can consistently stick to minding our business will become successful. Our business will flourish. And then we can start to branch out and help and assist others with what they want to do, as long as we're aligned in the goal, right? As long as the end product is what we all are trying to get to. So that's kind of what this topic was about. You know, I'm adamant about like just allowing grace for those around me who may not be doing things that I understand, number one, or that I may even agree with, but giving grace to say, man, hopefully they know what they're doing because they have a particular goal in mind. And whatever that goal is, hopefully it aligns with the things that they're doing, and they aren't, looking at someone else and incorporating these wrong actions or these wrong ideas into thinking that it's going to work for them. All right. So minding our business is ensuring that we're staying aligned with our end goal, right? And the purpose that we have for our lives. And I think if we continue to do this, it'll provide a level of success that no one else could achieve, because it's only made for us because of the journey that we're on. All right, so the milestone that I want to leave with you for today is a statement, and I want to read it in its entirety. Peace comes when you stop trying to live by someone else's blueprint. It's about faithfulness to your assignment, not similarity to someone else's. All right, this journey that we're on, in this journey of minding our business, it's really putting blindfolds on, not worrying about who is running next to us and how they are running or what they're doing, but really focusing on what it is that we want to achieve and how we want to achieve this. All right. So peace comes when you stop trying to live by someone else's blueprint. It's about faithfulness to your assignment, not similarity to someone else's. So my encouragement is, man, let's start minding our own business, right? Both realistically and relatively. I think for me, this has become a lifestyle. I tend to just focus on myself, man, because, if we look at social media, I think we should look at it as a performative platform, right? Everyone is performing, right? It's become what I call the new Hollywood, right? Everyone are actors, everyone are performers. So nothing is true, nothing is real, right? Take everything you see, everything you hear with a grain of salt and focus on your race. All right. As always, the vision and goal of this podcast is to entertain, educate, and elevate you miles high above your fears, your doubts, and any limitations that you may think exist, always knowing that those limitations only exist in your mind. All right. Until next time, you guys stay blessed.